if you're coming across this video on social media, odds are you've seen a meme or two today.
Superintendent Chalmers, welcome.
Dental plan.
Lisa needs braces.
You can't park that there, mate.
One of my favorites is the "you had one job" meme. You've probably seen some of them.
Yo, bro, stop playing around, bro. Hey, yo, my man. Hey, yo, my man.
I like to think about what happened after all those things happened. I can bet you one thing. Anyone who painted those lines wrong or installed a doorway to nowhere didn't get a bonus. Because in the real world, if you don't do your job, you don't get rewarded. That's true for everywhere in Canada, except in Justin Trudeau's government. Let me explain.
We have recently switched to drinking water bottles out of water out of when we have water bottles out of plastic. Away from plastic towards paper.
You're fired! You're fired!
I'm going to give you a few examples of the government paying out big bonuses to government officials who literally had one job and they didn't do it. Let's start with the Canada Infrastructure Bank. There might be a reason why you have never heard of it, and that's because it hasn't done anything. It has one job, and that is to increase the number of infrastructure projects in Canada. It's been around since 2017. Over under on how many projects they've actually completed? Well, if you picked 0, you'd be right. They haven't completed a single project in almost 6 years. They get $35 billion. They were supposed to unleash all this private sector investment to get things built in this country, and they've completely failed. So, what happens in Justin Trudeau's government when you have officials like that? They get a big reward. $7.7 million in bonuses paid out to 100% of their senior management team. That works out to about $85,000 per person. And again, they haven't done anything. They had one job and they didn't do it. Example number 2, the CMHC, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That's the federal agency whose core mandate is to increase the number of Canadians who own their own home. Well, let's take a look at how they're doing. There is a massive affordability crisis in major cities across Canada as the dream of home ownership gets further and further beyond the grasp of hardworking Canadians. Under Justin Trudeau, housing costs have more than doubled, and the average home price in large cities has gone up by hundreds of thousands of dollars. The CMHC has one primary objective, and this is from its own website. It says they are, quote, driven by one goal: housing affordability for all. Now, in the midst of this crisis, the CMHC itself is admitting that new housing starts will go down. In fact, in 2023, there will be 60,000 fewer homes built than in 2021, just a few years ago. So what happens in Justin Trudeau's government when the CMHC fails so miserably? They get big bonuses. In fact, since 2020, the CMHC has paid out over $75 million in bonuses with your money. They had one job and they didn't do it. Now, example number 3, let's look at the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada has been in the news a lot over the last few years, all for the wrong reasons. The Bank of Canada has one main job, that is to keep inflation low. I don't need to tell you how badly they have failed at that. If you've walked down a grocery aisle in the last few months, you've seen prices skyrocket. If you've fueled up your car, if you're looking to buy a new home, you know that costs are rising across the country, across the board. They have utterly failed to keep inflation low.
Interest rates are very low, and they're going to be there for a long time.
And how are they tackling this crisis that they created? They're raising interest rates. So not only are you paying higher prices, but now you're paying more on your mortgage and your line of credit to try to offset that. A brutal double whammy. So after all of that failure, what happens in Justin Trudeau's government? The Bank of Canada gets big bonuses too. $20 million of your money after they utterly failed to do the one thing they're supposed to do. They paid themselves out bonuses. While you're struggling to make ends meet and keep up with rising costs, they're writing themselves big fat checks. They had one job, they didn't do it either. But there is one person who is responsible for all this failure. And the good news is, even though Justin Trudeau won't hold those officials accountable for all their failures, you can hold him accountable in the next election. It's time Justin Trudeau got a dose of the real world so he can find out what happens to people who don't do their job. It's time to bring it home with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives.